but I will be streaming Tuesday at some point. I'm not going to put a time yet. Afternoon, or maybe into the evening. I'll update it on the day on the Discord. Wednesday, maybe during the afternoon, I'll see. Next Thursday and Friday I won't be, and then at the weekend I don't know. So Tuesday, Wednesday I should be about. There's a new game that I've got that I'm going to be playing called... oh god, what's it called? The Necromancer's Tale. Kind of looks... actually, you know what? Before... oh look, there's another one with the boys. Before I go, I'll actually watch the latest Q&A that the Forever Winter devs did, because I've been waiting for that for a long time, and it was finally released a few days ago. How long is it? 48 minutes? You know what? Yeah, I think for the remainder of the stream, let's just chill and watch this. Fuck it. Fuck it, why not?
So we got a question from Ara1. Hey, thank you for putting in so much work into the game lately. I hope you guys are holding up. In the last...
I need to say, the devs have been absolutely knocking it out the park with the updates. From games that I know of and that I play, I feel like the only devs that really rival them at the moment with updates and outputs are the No Man's Sky devs, and that's just mainly because with No Man's Sky, with the updates that they throw out, even though they're not as often, they're just very big and, you know, completely free. Whereas these updates are obviously for an early access game where it's more about completing the game. But so actually, to compare them to other early access devs, I would probably say that they're potentially the... actually no, Enshrouded is still in early access, and those devs have been knocking it out of the park recently as well. So yeah, I'd probably say Enshrouded and Forever Winter, when it comes to updates at the moment, are the second to none in early access, from what I know of, from my experience.
patches, we've seen the addition of the team weapon mechanic and many new enemy types that can only be destroyed by the new railgun. It's a fun concept, and I get the narrative vision. There's just stuff out there you're not supposed to be dealing with as some random guy with a rifle. Are you willing to take the risk to search for and eventually field a high-tech heavy weapon emplacement? Will you get your money's worth in the end? However, I think there are some issues with this mechanic, both narrative and gameplay related. There is now a decent amount of units that can be engaged without a railgun, often simply called invincible enemies. Which units are invincible and which ones aren't currently feels somewhat arbitrary. How can a scav with a grenade launcher blow up an exo with one magazine, but the similarly sized Opal is completely impervious to everything but railgun fire? How is a god knows how many ton mech bristling with armor plating and guns destructible, but the man-sized Orgamech isn't? With engagements between factions now being more protracted and dynamically moving across the map, this rocks by the way, situations where an invincible unit just stands around and kills everything while eating tank and mech rifle shells for breakfast are now unavoidable, and it plainly looks stupid. It really takes you out of the game. Are there any plans about looking into this? Tying into this, going forward, what are your ideas for invincible, tough enemies?
That's a really, really good question, and I think it's got a little bit of a multifaceted answer. So a couple considerations. Most of the counters to the invincible units, as we're calling them, right, or as you guys are calling them, would be fielded by Europa, and Europa doesn't put a high priority on their guys' life expectancy, and a lot of them don't have, like, for example, like if you're dealing with like helicopter gunships, these guys haven't been given stingers. If you're dealing with kind of like these types of like heavier units that are using advanced materials, they haven't actually given Europa.
Hey, Disco Jedi. Medium mechs were always going to be brought into the invincible unit pool. Um, were they? I mean, but they. So they started off as an invincible unit, pretty much. Like it would be very hard for you to take them down. Very hard. With the railgun, it's now easier. You can do it. They're not then going to make medium mechs invincible again, are they?
Well, a lot of units to counter that. But to your point, and this is actually really interesting, tanks and also medium mechs should be able to take those units out. So
Yeah.
from like a lore standpoint, there is some cognitive dissonance there, and we definitely are exploring basically making that feel a little bit more balanced. The other reason is a lot of the frontline units for Europa
Yeah.
have been beat to hell and back. And so they're operating on rickety joints and they're basically barely holding the line.
It was silly that we could break line of sight and artillery strike it with grenade launchers. That was very silly, but I also feel that was probably more an AI issue rather than them being difficult or like easy to take down with a grenade launcher. I feel like if you were to artillery strike a medium mech with a grenade launcher for long enough, yes, you should be able to take it down. However, just being able to be out of sight and do it, that is a bit silly. What the hell just fell? My phone just fell. And that is currently being used as the the temporary gerbil cam. Hang on, let me just get that back up. Was it even that? No, that's now upside down. Hang on. Almost. Why do I feel like that is different? I've now... You know what? Fuck it. Let's, The boys are currently asleep anyway. I feel like there's no point in the gerbil cam for this. Also, I've now somehow put my display capture within the gerbil cam folder. Right, there we go. Okay. Sweet. No, the gerbils clearly agree. Yeah, they're just like, fuck it. Yeah. I think that was more of an AI issue, rather than that being a valid tactic, because it clearly isn't. If a medium mech should go after you if it's getting bombarded with grenade launcher shells. What the hell? Oh wait, no, I see what I just did.
And that actually completely dovetails into the kind of like enemy at the gates, Stalingrad, freaking, Warsaw street fight, mechanic, where it's basically like these guys are basically the bottom of the barrel. And they're just basically just trying to hang on with everything that they have. And if you focus fire on some of like those weak joints, those exposed joints with any type of RPG style system like the grenade launcher, then yeah, they're definitely going to have some issues. And that was one of the things that we tried to express in the combat loop. That being said, it's not to rule out that Europa won't deploy units that can counter these guys. So it's a little bit of a balancing act there. And then when you think about it, to get a railgun or to build up a crew served weapon from like a scav perspective, these guys are basically taking the extra time to R&D something, and they're basically taking it upon themselves. But if you're asking like a conscript that's on the front lines of any battlefield in the world today, like, does their government or does their military really actually give a shit about them enough to give them something along the lines of the railgun? The answer is no. Like, we don't see it in real life. We definitely wouldn't see it in the fiction.
Yeah.
But that said, Europa as a faction does have kill teams and crew served weapon systems that they can deploy. They just determine where on the front line it makes sense to use those types of units.
Yeah, I mean, like,
and
the
this
European
being
EODs,
one
for
of the
example.
outskirts of the Pacific
That's
Theater,
a basic.
they currently don't give a shit about that sector,
Yeah.
which is also one of the reasons why you're seeing scavs using this as primary looting ground, because this is one of the less contested areas where you're not seeing some of the larger units like Big Green or some of the heavier units. And interestingly enough, this actually ties into the theater of war system, which is basically things will happen on the battlefield that will cause that faction's AI to deploy certain units in small specialized numbers to deal with something specific. But otherwise, you're not seeing meat armor all the time. You're not seeing Orgamex all the time, right? It's generally, those are specialist units for specific battlefield breaking purposes.
Like, everything, like he said there, I would agree with. If you want to consider a specialized European unit, it would probably have to be the explosive ordnance guys. I would say they're the most basic specialized unit for Europa, and compared to the other European units, you don't see them that often. They're not completely rare. It's not like they're not like an Ogre mech or a brawler, but it's not like they're populating the entire map like a regular European infantry soldier. I mean, even the European Macabre tanks, they don't pop up that often compared to like the Euruscan T51s, T50s. In my opinion, IRL railgun would get taken out by a $120 drone. True. I even feel like in the game, like, if a railgun was pounding on like the medium mechs, you'd think they'd send in 2 or 3 drones to just start opening fire on the railgun crew, because they'd be a little bit quicker and harder to aim at with a railgun compared to a medium mech. So yeah, you just send in some small zippy boys.
And that was some of the, like, you know, the 4D chess, you know, behind it. And then that being said as well, we are also exploring some new mechanics on how it can still feel a little bit more fair in some ways for some of those ground units. So if there's a certain amount of damage, then, you know, like it's kind of like Resident Evil 4 logic. If you put enough munitions into larger unbeatable enemies, you can at least stun them for a little while, and that maybe gives these guys a little bit of breathing room to do whatever it is that they're going to do. Now, if that's withdrawing, whether that's you as a scav getting the fuck out of there so that you can go to another sector, that is fine too. But that was essentially kind of how we were load balancing some of that. And we're looking at more mechanics on, you know, using some of the tools that currently already exist in the game in fairly obvious ways that a lot of insurgents around the world use these tools as well. So, you know, it's I'll let you guys figure that one out. That can just be part of the combat puzzle. But it's a good question. And yeah, I mean, I think to your point, Europa medium mechs and tanks should be able to deal a decent amount of damage to these units. That absolutely makes sense in the lore. But anything else, no chance in hell.
Yeah, I think another, so that I don't just repeat everything Miles just said, another piece is that every time we add, change, or remove, I suppose, anything from the ecosystem, everything influences everything. So there's also an audit of damage values and health values and resistance values that we have to constantly do until we get to 1.0, and those aren't always going to be perfect. That'll be another part of the equation is the narrative intent and goal, as Miles said, and then just the raw under the hood numbers game and booleans and stuff like that, and that will continue to walk in because like even just recently some items were easier to destroy than it was intended, and some are harder, and those, you know, with armor pieces on the mechs, with the stun of the railgun, with even magazine capacity and all the weapons you can field that you can customize. It's just a big numbers game on top of all the narrative stuff that Miles mentioned to meet that narrative goal. So that'll keep going on.
Exactly. I mean, it's interesting because when I think like, you know, you think of like the power loader from Aliens, right? Like anybody with an M203, which you're talking about a fairly widely used weapon by the U.S. military, even at infantry level, would be able to smoke that exosuit in 2 seconds. It's kind of the same thing with the exosuits in Avatar, right? Like you've got this huge, super expensive to produce mech, and you can take out the front plate of that where the pilot's located in a giant bubble World War II cockpit with a bow and arrow.
Mech exosuits in the
Matrix. I'm totally down with that. Like I fucking love that shit. Like, and I think that's one of the reasons why Warhammer works really well. And the same with Trench Crusade. Like dudes are still using spears next to rocket propelled grenades. Like I think it's an interesting blend. And
God, I love Trench
Crusade. I think
so
it's just one of those things where exos in particular would be in real life fairly easy to fuck up, and that's one of the reasons why we haven't seen them yet.
Yep.
But on the flip side, they're fucking cool, and they fit the aesthetic and the ideology of that faction, so that's why they're there. And it also stands to reason that any halfway decent strategy on taking them out, like people would figure that out reasonably quickly. But by the same token, it's like we see the AK everywhere. We see the STG fucking 44 being used today. So it's just one of those things where it's like, you know, some things are going to hit really, really hard from a faction development standpoint, and some things are going to be a little bit easier to smoke or have like very, very, very straightforward issues. Like the Tiger tank, right? Like was easily the meanest tank next to some of the meaner tanks that the Russians were deploying. But the thing is, it's like if you can't get machine parts, replacement parts to that thing, then it's a fucking bunker. And that's basically how they were used during the Battle of Kursk eventually, right? Like they would just put a fucking turret on a box, just be like, hopefully it works out, because it's no longer usable for its original intended purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, like even just like modern day right now, like without naming anywhere specifically, you can see any number of videos or stories or YouTubes of millions of dollars of military grade manufactured hardware being destroyed by a $2,000 drone with an IED strapped to its butt. Like it's very interesting how all this stuff evolves.
Like the tech in modern day warfare is crazy.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
And like it's like I mean, like he's just said it there. Like if you look at wars throughout history, there's lots of examples of you know, like the most modern, up to date tech being absolutely wrecked by like you know, some old shit. You know, like in Vietnam, the Vietnamese were using AKs, they were using bamboo traps, things like that against the US Army's more up to date weapons. In the Ukraine, you've got simply just stick an explosive to a drone, fly it into a tank, there we go. In Afghanistan and Iraq, you'd have the IEDs that were causing issues.
It's like it adds new meaning to, you know, the term mil spec, right? Like that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best shit. That just means that's what passed the military specification for that country. And yeah, obviously the Europa guys are feeling the business end of that. But luckily they're going to get something cool next week, so I'm not too worried about it in the short term. I can't wait to, you know, bring the boys a little bit more love. But we're walking in as always.
Next question from Flaben. Character skill tree. Will we see more skill trees
Yes,
for the different
please.
classes? Perhaps
Please.
new ones become unlocked as prestige is gained. Make very class-defining traits like a pet or mobile sentry, solo railgun, etc.
Dude, it's funny. we we actually have animations for literally what you just described.
We,
It
oh,
was
we have
more of like
we have had this question before, and like previously when I've done watch-alongs of the Q&As, I will state like I can't even remember what one of them was. I think it was like the water system, and was it AI? Oh, I can't remember what it was now. But there was like 3 Q&As in a row where the same questions were asked over and over again, and I was like, fuck's sake. But I think it's been one or two videos since the skill tree update was asked, I feel. Or maybe it's just because it's been such a long time since there was a Q&A video. But I would like information on it.
engineering challenges on that front. So short answer, yeah, man, we'd fucking
Yeah. Will this happen?
love to, absolutely. I think it's like one of those things, and this is kind of something that we're kind of evaluating
Will there be
internally as well.
PvP?
It's definitely on the dream list. I don't know if it's going to make it in its entirety for, the equivalent of like what seems reasonable for 1.0
Whoa,
from like a
whoa,
system
wait,
standpoint.
Hang on, I need to go back.
We actually have animations for literally what you just described. It was like more of like engineering challenges on that front. So short answer, yeah, man, we'd fucking love to, absolutely. I think it's like one of those things, and this is
Hang on, I need to go
Like
back further.
skill lab-
Hang on.
I can't wait to bring the boys a little bit more love.
Yeah,
But
right.
we're walking in as always.
Next question from Flaben. Character skill tree. Will we see more
So is
skill
he just talking
trees
about
for the different
animations, or was he
classes?
talking
Perhaps new ones become unlocked as
entire
prestige
skill
is
trees?
gained. Make very class-defining traits like a pet or mobile sentry, solo railgun, etc.
Dude, it's funny. we actually have animations for literally what you just described.
For the pets.
It was like more of like engineering challenges on that front. So short answer, yeah, man, we'd fucking love to.
I thought he
absolutely.
was saying, yeah, skill trees
I think it's
for
like one of those
1.0.
things, and
No.
this
But no, I
is
think
kind
he's
of something
talking
that
about
we're kind of
animations.
evaluating
Yeah,
internally as well. It's definitely on the dream list.
The thing is, though, there's the mule. And you have NPC recruits that you can get. So I don't see why a mobile turret would be an issue. It would just come down to like the animation and the hitbox for it and everything. Unless they're talking about a deployable. That might be then different. Like being able to upgrade the mule with turrets and shit, that would be cool. Anyway.
I don't know if it's going to make it in its entirety for, the equivalent of like what seems reasonable for 1.0 from like a system standpoint, but it's definitely something that's on our radar. And it's definitely something that we want to explore and expand on. It's one of those things where it's like, it's largely engineering heavy, and, we're an indie crew. It's, very, very small team. So it's like, if I have someone working on perf, I have to take them off of performance to work on skill tree stuff. And as cool as the skill tree stuff is, and I love that shit, it's not necessarily as important as performance.
I would completely agree. Performance at
So
the
it's
moment.
one of those things where it's like, we always try to load balance and see like what makes the most sense. And
Performance is
sometimes it's
important
like
at the
super
moment,
painful and
they've
super
done a
tedious
really good
because it's just you
a
see
really
like this really
good,
cool
well
stuff
done
like
job
from
with
like a art and design standpoint where it's like, okay, here's what it looks like, here's how it fits into the world, here's what it's supposed to do, and then we have limited resources on the engineering side, so the execution is always challenging. And I'm really proud of the team, and I'm definitely proud of what our crew can do with like less than 20 people. Like it's fucking rock and roll. But it's always, it's always a challenge. Like we might open up like, I don't know, like maybe explore something like Patreon to like, front load some of this stuff, but it's really interesting because I also don't I'm not a huge fan of, just basically having to pass that on to, the community. It's like we do what we can and we come up with creative ways to make really cool shit in the time that we can do it. And I'm super proud of the updates that the team has put together. I mean, shit, like we're coming in on our 1 year anniversary, and that's thanks to
Fuck,
you
man.
guys, and that's thanks to the hard work that the team has put in. So I'm exceedingly proud on that front for sure.
I love and hate this question for the same because I ask it all the time. It's a good example of what Miles was talking about. Is there are not just skill trees and what skills would be in said trees. There are so many features that, like, even if you're not just you're on a 5 break, we're talking to each other about God, name anything, like the previous question about enemy unit types or anything in the game. It's a target rich environment for really cool ideas, and it's just a load balance, exactly like Miles says. Like the skills, the reason I say love hate is this one comes up a lot, both externally and internally, and the honest answer is the priorities I still agree with, even though I look at some of the opportunities there, just like you are with a good question about it and saying like, oh, someday. So we'll just see if we get there and what is important or more important to that, and make sure that that's awesome first.
Exactly. And it's sometimes it's like it's
Prioritize.
shit like,
Absolutely.
hey, like,
but I do still feel that the skill
how the
trees
system is currently
need
implemented,
love.
we're looking at ways that it can still do the desired effect. And then what are ways that we can kind of expand on that, and what are ways where we can do something that's adjacent to that. And it's wherever we have existing structures that we can kind of iterate on, like that's the fun stuff, because at that point it's like, okay, cool, like we're kind of blue skying, this type of thing. Like, does the enemy grab you by the fucking sternum and then fucking throw you, like just all sorts of fun shit like that.
Thank you for the follow.
So we're constantly
Really
iterating on
appreciate
these things and looking at what works and what doesn't work. And it's maybe we'll get a chance to share some more like the prototype stuff, from the dark ages as well. But that's a battle for another day. And in the meantime, we're focused on forward progress.
Next question from Niche on character loadouts. Any plans for making some type of player loadouts? It takes a few minutes just to put your loadout together. Having presets and receiving the loadouts instantly would be cool to see.
Jeff.
Kind of similar to like you could save a customization on a weapon or a rig.
Mm-hmm.
I always want to go into battle with this thing that actually has come up. There are short answers. It's a really cool idea. I love anytime we could take something that the player has to do multiple times and streamline that. That's always like that's always worth discussing.
I think it is one we've had before.
Sometimes the effort to reach the end goal is desirable. I don't think so in this case. Like that's just like bootstrap dragging things into your rig or whatever, if I understand the question correctly. Some of the things occur to me if we explored that is like making sure if you don't have those items, does it just ask the vendors if those exist and rebuy them for you right away, and all sorts of like interesting edge cases. But there's been a lot of quality of life features and ideas that have come from the community, specifically revolving around.
I feel like any quality of life feature that is currently getting requested is not a priority at the moment. It feeds into the last question and answer that you just gave. It's just not that important at the moment. There's so many other things that need work and need to be focused on, and people are asking for, hey, can we create loadouts? Yeah, at some point that would be nice, but let's focus on what needs doing, what needs to be implemented, what needs to be fixed.
And loadouts and purchasing and selling things. This one is also a good one. I think it's worth exploring. I don't think it's something that we'll be able to dive on and like crush immediately, but I like the idea.
Definitely. Actually, it's interesting because it's like the unintended, like, okay, so a couple things. One, yeah, we got to do a shout out to Kilpo. You know, he's been working with us on some of this stuff and bringing some of your ideas forwards as well. So that's been hugely helpful on that front, like including streamlining some of the vendor stuff, just like small quality of life shit that, you know, can help out there. But circling back, it's like the unintended, right? So you think about it like, oh man, it would be really cool to do this, or if you could customize this, but then it's like you've got the extra like menu bullshit, or you've got the extra like, oh, like exactly what Jeff, you know, pointed out, which is
it's like a lot of people
if you
asking
don't
about
have this item,
character
you don't have this
customization.
one item in your loadout, like is it basically going to fuck with you, right? Like, and
That's a
it's
question
just
that gets
stuff
asked
like
a lot.
that where on paper it's like, dude, like we should be able to do that next week, like that would be sick. But then just making sure that it's like reasonable and respectful to the engineers that actually have to implement it as well, because it's never, especially since we have a lot of reasonably complicated systems in the game, it's never as simple as just X plus Y and then we're there. There's always a bunch of other pieces that have to go in there. And when I say bullshit, it's literally like, okay, like Kai has to make the widgets, Ilya has to work on the engineering implementation component. It might tie into something that's a legacy system that we've stepwise refined or replaced. There's a lot of gotchas on that that make it exceedingly frustrating, but you know, that's why we're walking it in, right? And that's one of the reasons why, you know, it's coming together the way that it is.
Next questions from Megadi. Stun mechanics and undeserved invincibilities. So this post focuses on the invincible enemies. We currently have 6 unkillable boss enemies that pose a direct threat to the players. All of them except for Tutti and Mother. I clearly can't imagine them being unkillable by my weapons. The railgun is very tedious.
I feel
and
like
requires a group to
why
set
have they
up,
included
which
this
is not
question?
ideal for casuals or solo players.
Well, the very
Why
first
not
question.
change this? First idea is to obviously add a weak point stun mechanic. The other thing would be a tool
You
or
could have
grenade
combined
you
these
can
questions
use on
together,
them to
man.
disable them for, I don't know, a minute or reset aggro to make a successful escape or extract. If you want to make it spicy, make it risky. For example, the tool would require melee, which is a gamble of life and death, of course, or a method to lure them into enemy swarms.
If I may, what's interesting, or what I heard from that question, is it kind of started with invincible enemies and ended with how do I escape from these guys? Like not kill them, but, or her in the case of Mother, how do I get away with the stun or stagger stuff? That's actually interesting because it's stuff we've been explored. It gets into the first question, but I think that's
Yes, it
an
does get
interesting
to the first
distinction
question.
between an invincible or a perception of an invincible enemy and more abilities to disengage. 'Cause those are like 2 points.
I think it's an element of people want the game to be easier, and an element of people want to be a kick-ass action hero, badass, going around fucking destroying everything. When, you know, one of the philosophies of the game has always been, you're not that guy.
Points that I heard from that. The latter is definitely something we've been exploring in different ways, even recently, about how are different ways to tackle overwhelming forces once they've decided you're a problem. The former, I would just listen to our answer to the first question, unless Miles, you want to add more to that.
Well, I definitely want to add more to
Oh,
that,
no.
and it's not going to be politically correct, so they'll have to forgive me. Yeah, no, I mean it's interesting because I appreciate that you're definitely playing the game as like I personally play the game, and a lot of my buddies play the game as well, which is you're basically seeing those dudes and you're like, okay, we need to get the fuck out of here right now, and that's what their intended purpose
Yes.
is like very much a pressure thing. And you imagine if you're a Europa conscript, you see like a fucking meat man running at you, right? Like, dude, Like that's like,
Yeah.
all right, well, I guess we're fucked then. Like
Yep.
that's game over, right? Like it's the David and Goliath situation, which to your point, like I do think, yeah, like expanding on some of the tools that the player could use. Like I like the idea actually of the melee thing, probably not, but like the idea of like sticky bomb, like C4 type thing could be interesting, you know, or like traps. You know, there's definitely stuff that we can explore on that front. In terms of them being like generally unkillable, yeah, we kind of talked about that in the first question. So it's, you know, in some ways that's been answered, but expanding the player's tool sets to basically come up with different strategies, like we're all for. And that's one of the things that
I've just had a random thought, but why do you have to be able to kill everything? Why does that have to be the answer? And what made me think, like, again, it's just completely random thought for some reason, but what made me think about that is he was thinking of, like, talking about escaping from things. If you take a game like, again, it's a completely different style of game, but if you look at Dead by Daylight, you've got one player who is an unkillable enemy that is hunting and trying to kill you. And the idea is to hide from them, to run away. You can put obstacles down, traps, things that will slow them down, but you're not going to be able to kill them. If you were able to kill them, even if it was hard, if it was difficult, if you were able to team up and kill them, it would remove a huge element of oh shit and fear from the game. So I feel like there should definitely be some enemies that are completely invincible and you can't kill. But yes, you should be able to stagger them and get away from them. It shouldn't just be bullshit. For example, like when the grabbers during that one build were able to like fucking insta teleport to you from like 10 feet away or get you through a wall. Yes, that is bullshit. That needs to be fixed. But not being able to kill a grabber, that's great. I love that. It makes them so fucking terrifying. Whereas if a grabber was charging towards you and you just stood there and opened, like, emptied one or two clips into it and it went down. Yeah. Some people just want every game to be Call of Duty, and these folks tend to be the most vocal element of the player base. Exactly. The most vocal like part of any player base are the ones that will have something to complain about, because they're the ones that are on the message boards typing their rhetoric, whilst the people who are enjoying it are too busy playing the games to be on the message boards most of the time. Exactly.
You know, like our POV with a lot of these mechanics is basically we'll expand the player's tool set, but we're always trying to be cognizant of not creating like easy out weapon systems that are just basically like, cool, you're Doom guy. Like Doom is fucking sick.
Yep.
I actually like Dark Ages. I guess I'm an asshole. I don't know. But like that already exists, and it exists in a very pure format. And so like I can give you a fucking BFG, or I can give you like a Stinger missile system, or I can give you chaff grenades. But at the end of the day, it's like if you take something that's like an imminent threat and you turn it into a mild annoyance,
Yep.
like that's not really our objective. We're always trying to make it like a risk reward and, you know, try to balance it. And the other thing is like a lot of these guys only deploy if there's like very specific battlefield conditions and they've been deemed to be deployed to that sector for a specific purpose, right? And so I feel like there's enough ambiently going on that that kind of fits the vibe, at least in the context of some of these units. So while I agree the push and pull with the actual factions, like we can definitely make that more interesting by just deploying more units in these factions' repertoire. But then for the player component, it's like we can add more tools, but if you don't know how to use the tools effectively, you're still going to get fucked up, and you should get fucked up as a result of not using the tool effectively.
Yep.
Like we can give you options. How you decide to use said options, like that's on you guys. Like everything represents a potential combat puzzle, and I think that's one of the things that we really love about working on this game. And if we get to a point where we have to dial that down for casuals, yeah, that's fucking ridiculous. So it's
not gonna
just
happen.
not on the list. Yeah, it's not on the list. And I mean, it's that it was an interesting challenge, right? Because we always try to like balance it accordingly. But running is a very effective strategy, and it works most of the time.
Running and hiding.
But I know running is not the tactic that everybody likes to employ, and results may vary. So if you have a intelligent tactical team that's working together, you can use some of the tools to have effective solutions, and we can expand on that tool set.
You also don't need to run. You can also just wait. Wait for the big bad thing to go away. Wait for the crazy combat that's currently happening to stop and die out, and then go in. You don't need to. You can complete lots of quests and missions in the game without firing a single shot. Some of them require you to not even be detected, to not engage.
For us. Same thing with the railgun. It was like we didn't want that to be easy for people. If you were going, let's say, hunting, right? Then you were going hunting with a purpose, and you were going hunting with a plan, and you did some actual work with your buddies to make that happen. So it's a memorable experience. Like that for us is like that's the dream, right? It's like coming up with creative solutions out of the junk pile to take down, some of these titans, or at least affect the battlefield in that minute way where it's like, okay, we decided to do this together.
It's meant to take coordination. If there's anything about the specificity of what you're meant to do, meaning assemble it and understand you could shoot it within this arc of fire, if that doesn't work, that's one thing. But if it's just, I'd rather be able to have like a railgun as a sidearm or something, that's not going to happen, right? Like we're not going to give you the BFG in that way. The railgun is going to be a hard fought for, very deliberately placed success. If you manage to stun anybody and get their codex, that should be something to be celebrated.
I only have, so like I play solo the vast majority of the time. I only have one codex, and that's from the Rat King. And the only reason I have that codex is because I was doing the Rat King quest where you gotta get the whatchamacallit from it. Oh fuck my brain. It's been a long day. You gotta collect the 25 bits of Rat King essence. I'm just gonna call it essence. I can't remember what it's called now. And so I was following the Rat King around, and the Rat King got into a fight with lots of medium mechs, and it ended up getting destroyed. So I looted it. And that was an awesome moment. So again, it is possible to still be able to collect these rare items. You don't necessarily always need to engage. Sometimes just sitting and waiting can help. And I know that is necessarily not also very exciting, but that was actually an exciting run because I was dodging medium mechs and everything, and explosions. It's pretty good, pretty cool. Oh, dude, I'll play with you. I mean, you're very welcome to. Like, I'm not saying, I mainly play solo because I don't have people to play with. I do have people to play with. It's just that I play it a lot compared to a lot of my friends. So I often find myself playing solo, and just because it's a lot easier and straightforward. You're on the opposite side of the planet, so one of us will like hard. Well, that's something they need to work on a bit as well.
And honestly, it's meant to be rare.
Yeah, 100%.
Next question from Nova Optics. More rogue mechs AIs on the field. As more maps and zones are added, would there be a chance to see more rogue AIs of the wearing factions? We've already got Rat King, blessed be his name, which is a Ropan mech. I guess you can also count Lourdes, who is a rogue Orga mech. Maybe there can be a rogue Mother Courage in downtown Los Angeles that had a breakdown of what its purpose is and roams the city weeping. There could maybe be quests to add along with. It's similar to collecting Rat King residue, where
Residue,
you are
thank
asked
you.
to bring offerings to the weeping mother to ease her
Essence,
pain. But she
residue.
might give valuable stuff in return and have to bring that in for the quest.
I love that. I think
Yeah,
that's
it's super
fucking
cool.
fantastic. I dig that a lot. Definitely more rogue AI for sure. That's an easy one. The context actually, I think you
Rat
guys
King
are big as it
droppings,
ties
yes.
into the end game for just this whole sector.
I'm gonna
in
start
general.
referring to it as that.
But yeah, no, I think that's fucking dope. Like, I think it opens up a lot of really cool artistic opportunities, and it adds some interesting gameplay opportunities as well. Like that's actually one of the things that we've kind of been, I don't know, like a little bit frustrated about, because like there's so many really cool like ambient units and ambient functions of some of these units, like some like the resupply drones for some of the factions, and
Mhm.
some of like the more support type capacity units, and then those representing potentially like interesting unique loot opportunities, but also just being like part of that combat ecosystem. It's interesting because it's kind of like, if you think of the whole front of the
But again, just thought of an idea whilst they're talking about rogue AI. You could have like lost scav mules that have loot on them that act sort of like like the Diablo treasure goblins. So it's like a scav mule that has a lot of loot on it, but it can move quite quickly. It's armored. It can take a bit of punishment. And you've got to sort of chase after it to destroy it. But obviously, doing that draws in attention from the warring factions. That would be cool.
Pacific Theater, right? Like a big like circle. Basically, we're on like an outer ring of that circle, and there's like a whole ecosystem behind the lines, but we're also not seeing a lot of like the frontline like top tier units right now. Like, this is kind of the reason that it's worth going to the surface and looking for loot in these sectors, is because this is not the heaviest fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And these are not the heaviest units. And some of that's teased with like Big Green, but there's a lot of other really, really nasty shit.
I hope we do get to see some proper serious fighting. I do want to see the bigger units. I do want to see Big Green. I love the fact that the biggest mechs that are in the game currently are described as medium mechs. Show us the big fuck off ones. I'm not saying it should always be like that. Much like with the rarer units popping up, but it would be cool to be able to occasionally get those sorts of maps, like with the nighttime maps or the eclipse.
Out there that is like basically theater defining, heavy weapons.
Yeah.
And it's just there's going to be a lot of opportunities for that. So we'll obviously do what we can, but I love that idea. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add. I think it's cool.
Next question from Ibex. Big milestones. What do the developers see as the next big milestones for the game? Where do you see the problems, and what do you currently miss in the game? What would be of high importance for your vision of the final game?
This kind of links into a question that is asked on a semi-regular basis as well. Roadmap, basically.
It's a really good question. It's kind of 3 questions in one, and all of them would probably be 20 to 30 minutes, if not more, to answer. We'll try to do like a TLDR. So high level, we're closing in on the maps that we had originally teased in our Call to Arms video last year, and we're very happy with the progress on a lot of those. And then it's one of those things where it's like I feel like there's certain internal milestones where it's like, okay, cool, like this sector feels like we're like quest complete, or this particular area for like all these maps. Like this feels like a pretty decent chunk for, you know, like a pretty good milestone. But it's weird because it's like there's so many things that we want to do, and one of the things that we're also kind of cognizant of as well, and this is adjacent, but this is actually something that, you know, we're looking at, you know, exploring, is making sure that the file size doesn't get too crazy as well. Because it was like, fuck man, wouldn't it be sick, you know, if we did another 50 maps? It's like, yeah, that would be dope. But it's like looking at ways that we can creatively make sure that we're not overreaching, you know, and avoiding like some of the scope creep. Because fuck man, I worked on Starset, right? Like, you know, Chris is a maniac and he loves all sorts of really awesome shit, and you know, it was like hell of a fucking ride. But it's also one of those things where like scope creep is incredibly dangerous as well. So, you know, we're trying to figure out what makes sense for it to be, you know, condensed to this particular iteration of the game, and then what makes sense to, you know, move into another thing that's super fucking cool, right? So yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
I think, well, I'm not going to answer like the specific milestones, because part of the benefit of our small team is we're able to adapt quickly to what's most important. So, and also like the milestones, you know, those are constantly ongoing. I think at any one time, this is an abstraction, there's a lot of overload. The moment to moment of what the players are doing, and then the kind of meta of why you're doing it, those constantly compete on who's most important this nanosecond. And probably it's shifted 50 times by the time I've said this, between the time I've said this and the time you're actually listening to this on this video. So right this hot minute, one of the things I'm super excited about is a lot of really exciting stuff we're doing on the meta in terms of how you do things and why you're doing things. I love to have all of that exposed to you as soon as possible, but it's got to be done right. And that's also one that can take everything we've done in the moment to moment and either force multiply it or shit the bed all over it. So you got to do it right. So if you really put a gun to my temple and said, what's the biggest, scariest demon in terms of development in the future? I'd probably say the meta. I'm not scared of it, but like in terms of volume of work, that's how I'd quantify it. The moment to moment, like even in previous questions on this, is like whether it's the why things are as destroyable or not destroyable as they are, and how you use different tools or verbs or railguns or whatever we talked about. Those are always important.
Please.
But that meta, that big chunk,
Stop talking
is
about
something that we continue to work on behind the scenes and won't expose to the game. In terms of some very specific features, there's obviously been improvements along the way. I mean, really obvious things we could list, but that's the one I'm most excited about right now. And we're planning out with the rest of the road to 1.0.
Exactly.
Next question from Gremlin Gobbler. Any plans for tweaking or overhauling?
I think a good question. I don't think I don't think it's been asked. But what to them is 1.0? Do they have an idea of what 1.0 looks like? Have they answered that question before? I don't know.
The looting crafting system. The title above loosely sums up what I'm asking. However, after the release of the really nice gun restoration workbench, I'm left with a lot of excitement regarding how crafting as a whole will evolve with the development of the game, especially since scavenging is a core part of Forever Winter.
Awesome.
100%.
Yeah, no, I mean we're super excited about that as well, right? Like it's hard because it's trying to balance it with like the economy of the drops as well, and then balancing that with like, you know, identifiable landmarks for like looking for specific types of locations, and then being like, hey, I'm trying to build this up, for example, spoiler, right? Or I'm trying to basically build this very specific piece of equipment for this specific purpose, right? And so it's definitely something that we're digging into. Also trying to make sure that it fits within the existing economy, as insane as the economy is, right? So it's just one of those. Yeah, we're definitely planning on expanding on it. I don't know if like conceptually, like some of the stuff that you've probably imagined is probably what we're doing, right? So like that definitely, I guess we'll find out It's fucking hard, man, because like sometimes like you'll think about something like, oh man, it would be sick if like you have to create like a hacking terminal, and this hacking terminal has like mini games associated with it for specific types of content that you're engaging in the fucking raid, right? But then it's like, okay, cool. So now we have to make this fucking mini game, and then we have to have it play nice with all the other shit that's already in there. And so it's just one of those things where we try not to get sidetracked, especially if there's like fundamentals that are so like super fucking annoying.
Yeah, that's
and so I try to be like very, very careful with engineering time and bandwidth to make sure that it's going.
There's been a lot of questions that are linking to other questions that have already been asked within this video. There's been lots of talk about, you know, the invincible enemies and how you manage to... Oh, here he goes. What did you get? Congratulations! But yeah, I do think that comes in scope creep, and as you know, a lot of the questions within this video have been linked to other questions that have been asked within this video. It's been talking about the invincible enemies and, you know, how to deal with them, why you can't destroy them, the pros and cons of that, and then talking about this, it comes into what they were saying about scope creep and also prioritizing what needs to be worked on over other things. The questions have not been vetted very well in this video, and I wonder if that's to do with it's a different person asking the questions this time compared to the woman who's usually I can't remember her name, who's usually asking them. I wonder if there's an element of that.
Into the shit that's the most important. So short answer, yeah, like hell yeah, we're definitely going to expand on the crafting. I'm looking forward to it. There's actually some new components that are going to be dropped very shortly that we're exploring different opportunities for where that could be interesting. Obviously it'll be Battlefield drops as well, but you know, it could be interesting if you could craft.
She left the company. I believe it's the community manager of the Discord. I did not know that. I don't follow the Discord that much. I mainly follow the Discord for, has there been a game update or has there been another Q&A video released? So I did not catch the announcement that she's left.
Some of that shit too. Could be cool.
Yeah, exactly. The crafting system's super powerful, so you have to use it responsibly. Sorry for the Marvel ref. Yeah, every time we talk about the crafting, I get excited. There's always a new idea of like, what if you could make a thing? So that ends up on the list. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Next question from Ghost Whisperer. Weak points for enemies, big units, unkillables. What if we could shoot weak points on the ends of the mech and they can't use their weapons anymore? Or shoot...
Are you kidding me? Like, what the hell, man? I feel like... So what, we're 35 minutes in. I feel like we could have gotten rid of at least 15 minutes of this video so far from basically repeat questions. And also, you can, in the game currently, there are some enemies that you can actually shoot off different parts of them. This is already part of the game.
of the mounted gun on their shoulder, or maybe even disable some of their limbs so it is harder for them to move or aim. Maybe we can even shoot some of the armor so they can take extra damage on that area.
Think about a lot of games where this is super prevalent that I actually really love, right? Binary Domain, fucking sick. Lost Planet, also fucking sick. In both of those instances, you're a super soldier, literally not figuratively, and you're mag dumping on a giant bullet sponge and you're shooting at glowing orange like shoot me in the fucking face spots. And that loop is fun, but it's not really FW, but it's definitely something that we certainly considered. Like one of the things we were exploring was basically like the super exposed like joints, for example, so you could chunk out the armor.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
actually the exosuit has like that super complex underskeleton, so like it could actually be shredded down to like the bare bits. But it was just like, what is that core experience? And is that core experience like we're setting up a mounted LMG, or we're set up with M60s or AA12s, and we're just basically mag dumping on a fucking bullet sponge that's shedding little Lego bits, and then it's got glowing orange like energy containers underneath. Like that wasn't really our jam. So that was like one of the things that like it just fundamentally changed the flow. And we have prototypes of that, and we're actually happy to share some of that stuff if you guys are interested. But
it's
it just
in the
didn't
game.
really feel like it fit the game. Now, the railgun was an iteration of something that could be interesting because it required teamwork.
The medium mechs can have
required a plan.
Weapons blown off.
Working with other heavy explosive weapons that are already in the game, like that totally makes sense as well. But it also having the direct effect of what's like, okay, you're dealing a lot of damage to units that we only have a few of in this particular sector. You are now a primary threat, and there being legitimate consequences for that.
Completely agree. Obviously, if you're the one causing all this damage and taking, crippling a unit's firepower systems or whatever, then yes, you are a primary threat. However, it's not just you attacking the mechs, attacking these units. The enemy AI that's fighting each other, they should be able to blow off bits of other enemies to cripple them. So I think it's a good system to have, but it shouldn't be designed just for the player to do. It should be designed for one enemy unit to do to another enemy unit. And that's what does happen.
So it's just, it's just trying to find the balance there. Because I trust me, like we dig it, and we play a lot of those games that have the glowing magical red spot. And I'm not suggesting that what you're suggesting is exactly that, but we're definitely exploring having modules of like high value components that can be shot off of some of these guys, so that you can still accomplish your looting goals, even if you can't actually legitimately fuck these guys up, right? With small arms, which seems reasonable. With shit like the grenade launcher, it's a tough one because it makes more sense, but it also would make sense that they would just nerve gas the entire innards in response to that, right? So it's we try to like find like somewhere of like a happy medium that makes the most sense.
Yeah, it's also important to note that like some of these things are already happening. Like some of the weapons could be blown off, some of the larger enemies, not necessarily by you. Like if you will go in with the surplus stuff, probably not. But if you watch them fight the other enemies, they might blow those pieces off. Because everything we do, including like if we ever explored, and part of the reason we walked away from like sweet spots and stuff like that, it's not the player versus the world. Mm-hmm. It's the world versus the world where the players happen to be running through.
Exactly.
So that's another part of both the fantasy we're providing and the gameplay tweaking and the goals that we always have to consider whenever any of this stuff comes up.
Exactly. I would also go as far to say if there was another experience within the FW universe that was more focused on combat, this would definitely be something that we would be coming back to with a vengeance, certainly. So it's not like it hasn't crossed our mind, and it is applicable. And for example, like the first question, the medium mech weapon can be shot out of its hands. So that being like aspects of it that are already expressed, it's more, there's obviously more shit that we would like to do, and we'd like to tie it in meaningful, useful ways.
100%.
Question from Disco Jedi. Overall vision for the game. As the game evolves,
what the hell, man?
Its development with player feedback evolves from Disco Jedi. overall vision for the game.
You or coincidence?
Question from Disco Jedi. Overall vision for the game. As the game evolves throughout its development, with player feedback clearly being a big factor, how do you feel the game now stands in respect to the initial vision? With water debt no longer being as urgent and ammo being plentiful from the traders, do you feel the game is still conveying the difficulties the scavs would face day to day, apart from adding more and bigger enemies shooting and stomping on us? Are you looking at how to preserve the difficulties of merely existing in the bleak, grim, dark warscape? Also, why can none of those lazy bums loafing around in the innards grab a broom?
That last point is very, very, very good point. That last bit. Um, it kind of links in with what I was saying with what is their vision of 1.0, because you're right. The game has already changed in what their vision was. Very good example of that, as you said, is the water system. So yeah, it would be interesting. But that's the second time this has happened now. Like Evangelist, I remember in his question, not in the last one, but I think the one before was asked. I was like, holy shit! Fuck me. Caught me off guard.
I love the last bit. No, it's a good question. It's interesting. Like, it's still preserving a lot of the essentially like the core of the loop, right? Which I think is fantastic. And there's pieces that we're obviously iterating on to balance that. The updates to the water system I think makes sense. I think tying water to more of the economy and more of some of the other components of the meta that we're currently working on, I think that also makes sense. There are a couple considerations here, like user feedback in specific areas and improving it. But
you go back to the initial game trailer, there's a line about people in the dark with half-empty mags. I don't get a sense of lack of struggle outside of combat. Yep. But, I mean, you don't get a sense of lack of struggle outside of the combat. What do we see outside of the combat? We see the innards. And it has just, as you said, a lot of people loitering around, not helping with the cleaning. But we don't see, like there's no neutral NPCs running around the battlefield parts. And again, that is another question that has been asked a lot. Will we ever see scavs out in the battlefield running about? But I mean, I don't get a sense of struggle inside of the combat either sometimes, and I guess that comes down to balancing, because there was a point where like before a lot of the enemy AI updates, where you did become that guy and you would go around killing 50, 60, 100 enemies in a run. But I feel like the sense of struggle and hardships that the average person is going through within the world, I don't think you'll get much of a feel from that, like of that from this game. You don't have to conserve ammo. You go in with 1,000 rounds of 50 cal. Exactly. That is a very good point. I completely agree with you there. It does link in with the people in the dark with the half-empty mags, but you don't get a feel of where do people sleep at night? What do they have to eat? I mean, yeah, you'll do e-nuggets, but you're also looting bottles of wine and cereal and tinned food. But what's the quality of that like? know. I feel like I'm going off. I feel like I'm going off track here.
Now, we're also cognizant that a lot of people that pick the game up get their asses handed to them in a hat, which we're very proud of because that's means that it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, and also encouraging people that are basically like, what is your overall objective, right? And if your overall objective is to collect items so that you can keep a community of survivors going in the basement of this ruined society, right? Then it makes sense. If your objective is to go around and shoot stuff, then like, yeah, your fucking mileage may vary, right? Like, it's just it's interesting. It's interesting because I think like at the core, like our biggest inspiration was, the One Cut in Children of Men, but also the sequence in the first Terminator where it was like running to a point, maybe deploying an explosive, maybe shooting for a couple seconds, and then running again, and basically just trying to stay alive. And I think that a lot of players are experiencing that piece of the puzzle, and we're really proud of that. And for the homies that want to post up on a hill with like a bunch of M60s and shoot a bunch of dudes, like, yeah, that's totally cool. And there are going to be more units that are very specifically designed to fuck that play style up. And that's also very exciting because then it creates a challenge to you guys to come up with new strategies to basically kind of have that tug of war, between the systems that we come up with and just how people are actually interacting with it and how it preserves, like that core fantasy of, you're rat in a maze. And, there's a lot of really, really nasty shit out there that wants to eat your lunch.
Your question has given me a lot to think about, which is a breath of fresh air for this video. Jesus Christ. But yeah, yeah. I now need to go back and watch a lot of the earlier videos about the view for the game because it is. I don't feel. I've never thought about this. Like it's making me think about it. But preserving the vibe exactly. I don't feel like I'm keeping a community alive, especially, funnily enough, with how water is handled now. Previously, I need to go out there and get water. Water's very important. I need it. It's actually genuinely important that I get water. Because if it runs out, fucked. Whereas now, it's like... water, doesn't really matter. You've got infinite storage space yet. I mean, that was like I was playing just before watching this video, and I surprised myself with how many guns I just had lying around because I didn't realise I'd collected that many. I've got thousands of rounds, hundreds of grenades. Got all of that. Don't need to manage it. Water is not really important anymore. Food isn't even a question. Yeah, there is an element that there's no survival aspect. But then again, it's not a survival. It's not a survival game like, for example, Enshrouded or Rust or those types of games, obviously. But there's no survival mechanic outside of combat. Should there be a survival mechanic outside of combat? That then links back to how water used to be. People didn't like it like that. That was then taken away and it's created this vacuum, this hole, that nothing has been put back in its place. So there's now this core element missing from the game. And I'm not saying that it should be replaced with another real-time resource that is drained or is used. But it does feel like there is something missing there now, and I've never really properly thought about it until now. You'd like to see them re-implement water drain, but pose it as a moral decision. Do you allow a community of people to stay in your innards and drain your water, or kick everyone out to fend for themselves and turn the drain off, keeping your water for your crew? Yes, it does. It like creates an interesting moral dilemma. However, how does it affect the game? It doesn't. It's just an interesting moral dilemma. There needs to be a way that it also affects your game, so therefore it affects your scav reputation, for example. Oh, you're not providing water for these people? Well, now your reputation can't go as high as it could possibly go. Maybe you can only get to 75% rep now with the scavs. Maybe you now also you're more likely to get raided by water thieves because you're able to stockpile more water. And you don't have as many people there, so you're an easier target. That would be interesting. Holy shit, I think you're onto something there. Give people bring back like a drain on water. Put in maybe also power. Water, power, and like by power I mean like fuel. But also maybe power generation. Water, power generation, food. And have them as a real-time drain, but have the option to not have them as a real-time drain, or have them drain at different speeds. So, you know, you could have the water drain at 100% as it was, or maybe at 50%. So you're allowing some people in, but not that many. Oh god. My mind is unraveling with the possibilities. And then that creates player choice. And, you know, like, you might be like, right, you know what, for the next week, I'm going to have my water drain at the maximum amount it can drain at. Because I want to be running these scav quests that require max rep or something like that. I need to be able to get into this part of the map straight away, which requires max rep with.
Easy now, fuzzy little man Peach. You ever drunk Baileys from a shoe?
I have.
What?
I have.
You want to come to a club where people wee on each other?
Don't want to do that though. Oh god, I've had so many nice little ideas. Watching this video, the Treasure Goblin Scav Mule, and yeah, re-implement real-time drain for like water, food, fuel, and power, but allow the player to determine at what levels to have those drain at, and depending on what they set that to, that will have an effect on things like reputation, getting raided. Maybe even what's available for you to buy from the vendors as well. maybe if you even completely turn off the drain for like power, then you're no longer able to get one or two of the vendors at all until you turn that back on. Could sit here spitballing these ideas all night. Jeez.
So I don't know. It's a weird one because like there's other aspects of this question that are in some ways painful.
You're not able to hire NPC recruits because nobody's there because you've kicked them all out.
Because it's like, you know, if we see like a system that, you know, we put time into, or we see like a unit that, you know, we put time into, and it's basically
you turn off your your power consumption because like you're getting rid of people, so your power consumption is now like 0. That allows you to speed up your manufacturing process for repairing weapons because you've got more power and resources going towards it. So there's actually a benefit on top of reducing. Oh my god.
like it's not necessarily doing what we wanted it to do, or it's not working effectively, then like we're always down to have the flexibility to be like, okay, cool, let's evolve it, let's make it more interesting, let's expand on it, right? And that's the really exciting one. But then on the flip side, it's like, you know, if like camping a corner and like one tapping dudes like is, you know, the optimum strategy, and it's like, well, I don't know what purpose that is other than like creating a giant pile of bodies, because outside of that, like I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like the player is always encouraged to pick shit up and get home safe, and that is, you know, the primary of a scavenger in that environment.
Yep. But then what do you do with what you've
I don't
scavenged?
know if that answers the question. You know, this is
Well, I think it does.
word.
I think it does. I think to me, there's always shades of gray, but like I'll address two specific for Everwinter players. Is there's the newer, or the people that are getting curb stomped, and those people are slowly learning how to not get curb stomped, or to get curb stomped less and accomplish their goals. And then there's the I'll call them the elite. There's the other end of the spectrum, the people that have either through min-maxing or their play style or just the level thing. However, they're like hungry for more, and they have like what would be the apex predator in that case is somebody whose stash has everything, including their safety stash, and they consume any new additions or updates we put in, like the nanosecond. Those people, I think, will continue to be fed. And we talked earlier in a different question about the metagame by the additional stuff that we have planned on our way to 1.0. And I think, yeah, it is still scratching that itch, and on the way scratching the itch of the original design. I think you mentioned the water feature transition. That was the right choice, but it did also remove the real-time pressure by design, right? Like that was what water 1.0 was, and now it's more of a currency than a consistent pressure threat. That's already been discussed and kind of folded into a lot of the remaining stuff we want to do on our road to 1.0. Not that we have all the answers, but it's definitely not something that we're going to be like, oh wait, what about water? Like we know it currently exists. So that's a lot of words. The short answer is yes. I still think we fit that fantasy, and I think if you are one of the players that are on the extreme end that have everything, that's because a lot of the stuff for the totality of the experience just isn't in yet. But more and more of that stuff comes every milestone. I hope you feel that too.
Exactly. And on a personal note, like I'm just happy that we made a game that puts casuals into a wood chipper face first. So that's always something that I appreciate. You know, it's like, you know, the vast majority of the people that jump in get fucked up for a decent amount of time, and they start to learn enemy patterns, and they start to learn strategies, and they start to employ different tactics, and they adapt and evolve and overcome. And in some ways, it's like they're becoming more proficient scavengers, and that's fucking cool. Like I love that. Like it's weird. Like, and this might be just they don't fucking make games this way anymore, right?
They don't.
But used to be like, dude, like 90s, early 2000s, you get punched in the face, you're like, oh shit, I need to learn. I need to start looking.
And I need to learn. I need to figure this out. I don't need to go onto a website and learn the best build and min-max it, which is what the vast majority of games are these days.
Looking at like some of like the really cool complex systems that are at play here, and I need to basically start to evolve, and I will basically come at it a different way, and I'll try different strategies. And you go talk to your friends at school, and you'd be like, dude, I ran into this crazy motherfucker and I need some help. Like what did you do? And it's like, dude, I got my fucking ass kicked, bro, but then I realized you could actually go around it this way, or I could use this tool, or I could develop new strategies. Like, you were basically like, whatever it is that you could do to survive and get through it, and whether it was a puzzle, whether it was a boss, whether it was an environment, and that was fucking cool. So it's like it's just awesome to see like people be like, I got punched in the face, but I'm willing to get back up. That, like, I think that's the beauty of like any of the FromSoft games, right? Like, I loved reading some of the Steam reviews on like Armored Core, where they were just like, it's the worst game I've ever played in my life, and I was like, yeah, because you got your fucking ass kicked by the first boss. Like, you're welcome. But then the people that stuck with it were like, dude, this game is sick. And I was like, yeah, like that's, I don't know. I think there's beauty in that. And I think there's integrity in that. And any game that holds on to that, I don't fucking care if you're playing ours, if you're playing something else that actually challenges you and has you using your fucking brain, then like, I got nothing but love and support for that.
Yep.
I think we need more of it. And these days, I mean, Christ,
Completely
like with all the
agree.
layoffs of Microsoft, it's very clear. It's very clear that our way of life is dying, and I think it's worth fighting for. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Fuck it. Like, we're here to do just that as long as we can, while there's support for what we do.
Got grim there at the end, but you're right. You're totally right.
Oh boy! Well, thank Christ for your question at the end there, Disco Jedi. That seriously did save this Q&A for me. Because it did just feel like we were going round in circles, asking the same two questions over and over and over again. But yeah, that's your questions give me a lot to think about with the game. Anna's also now made me want to find a game that is sort of like what we talked about at the end with you've got resources, and depending on how much you spend of them will have an effect on your experience of the game. Because the core gameplay for the Forever Winter should be what it is. It should be an extraction shooter. But having this element running in the background, I don't think there's another game out there that is currently doing that. I never played Escape from Tarkov, so I don't know. I know Escape from Tarkov has generators, but I don't know if you're able to affect the level at which they drain. I think it would be very interesting to have a game that has real-time resource drain, and it can be different resources, and you can switch the levels of the drain. You can switch the drain completely off, so that'll satisfy people. You can set the drain to maximum or at different increments in between, and that will have different effects, both positive and negative, on what happens as you play the game. Anyway, an hour and a half ago I said that I was going to end the stream there. I'm now actually going to end the stream because I've been up since 4 a.m. I've been up 19 hours. I'm back in work tomorrow. Thank you very much, Disco and Breg the Egg, for your follows. Thank you, Ladrop, for the subscription. I'm not going to be streaming tomorrow or Monday. I will be back on Tuesday. I've got a game to play that I got sent from a dev. Like I said the name of it before. What's it called? The Necromancer's Tale. It looks like a sort of cross between Baldur's Gate 3 and Disco Elysium, from what I can tell. But should be interesting. So I will be playing that at some point on Tuesday or Wednesday. But Tuesday and Wednesday next week I'll be streaming. Every other day, Monday, Thursday, Friday, I'm not streaming. Next Saturday, Sunday, I don't know yet. But we'll see. I also still need to jump more into Forever Winter. I've hardly touched the latest update of Forever Winter, which is very unlike me. So I need to get back to that as well. But thank you very much. It's been good chatting with you as well. Yeah, I shall see you during the week next week. Until then, bye bye.